Oh, Shannon, Weiss makes a good point, because that is what David Kostin of Goldman Sachs is talking about today. Higher taxes are the key risk to stocks, he says, more so than anything else, whether it's a cut to growth forecast. Don't fixate on that. It's tax reform that is actually now the biggest risk. So are we in kind of a wait and see period to see what happens with taxes, as the Democrats are talking about that, before we can make a meaningful move higher? If anything, we're going to continue to sort of trade where we are. We may have breaks here and there, but we're not going to get that bounce that we ask about at the top of the program until we can figure out what's going to happen with tax policy. Have we been paying enough attention to that? Because I don't feel like we have.
No, I don't think we have. And I would completely agree that that is in focus. I want to point out that Washington, I think, was pretty much a tailwind for much of last year. And this summer it's been quiet because, they're not there. And so this week we've got the Senate coming back. We've got the House coming back next week. We've got a lot of those concerns that we've discussed over the last several years, the debt ceiling, what's going to happen in reconciliation, where are we going with taxes? And I think especially over the next couple of weeks, we're going to get this flurry of economic data. We're going to start to read the tea leaves of what's happening in Washington. And should we get a sell-off, Scott? I think the bigger question is, where would you go if we had a correction? Are you going back to the epicenter? Are you going back to these major reopening stocks with the acknowledgement that perhaps we're entering a low growth, lower, maybe higher rate, but low rate environment for the next several years? I continue to look at it in terms of what sectors and industries would be hurt by tax reform. Have we fully priced that in? But what other surprises could come out of Washington over the next few months? And I think, again, we're shifting from Washington being a tailwind to a headwind. I'm not even talking about the Fed. I'm just talking about Capitol Hill and what could happen. And there's a lot to unpack with what needs to happen over the next 8 weeks in Washington.
The market hasn't factored in higher taxes at all. I don't think. Weiss, you don't think the market's factored that in at all, right?
No, because if it has, you'd have to take down corporate earnings, which would mean more multiple expansion just to stay where you are. But I think the reason the market's not taking into account is that they don't think it'll pass. You have Manchin out there who said he's not passing tax increases, so you need his vote. You have some other moderate Democrats said, look, we don't need tax increases. So the bottom line is, no, it's not taking into account, not because it's ignoring it, but because it doesn't think it's going to pass.
Well, to the degree that they're talking about it may not pass, but they may be able to get something through, Bryn. And that in and of itself
then I think it'll be
What's that, Weiss?
Yeah, I think it'd actually be a buy on the news if that's the case, if you see something between 21%, 26.5%. And keep in mind that, the tax on those making over $5 million, which they want to do, that doesn't affect, 98% of the country, 99% of the country? I don't think that's a fact.